So I would just like to start this video by saying Ricky Hatton is, in my opinion, well, most people's boxing royalty in this country. Henry Cooper was adored. Um, the nation idolised Frank Bruno, and it was almost like Ricky Hatton just went, here, hold my pint, watch this, and they'll never, certainly in our lifetime, be a more loved fighter than Ricky Hatton. And when he lost to Floyd Mayweather, uh, nearly 20 years ago now, was it? 18 and a half. That was probably the only time that I was so upset. It was almost like Celtic lost. It was like, I'd not had that before, where, just the whole nation was just on a downer. The guy is, what he did is, he's such a wonderful person as well. Obviously, from a good family. Carol Hatton follows the Junior Witter page. And I watched for years. I remember seeing Ricky, or Richard as he was then, boxing in the amateurs. It was the semi-finals of the boys' clubs. He fought an Asian guy. Broke his ribs in about 22 seconds. Got to the final and knocked him out. Blonde kid, spiky hair. Oh, Sales West, was it he boxed for? All black, anyway. And he was a standout, and you always knew he was going to be special. So I've got a book coming out. So I'd agreed to do this book 4 years ago. And I actually sat and recorded it 3 years ago this week. Junior's had it for nearly 2 years. He's just that laid back that he's almost horizontal. Very, very extremely laid back guy. But he needs a little nudge now and again. So I'm going to be with him this month, and I'm basically going to read the full book to him, and just go over the last few bits, and then basically it's mine to get out. So I was thinking, moral of the story of this video is, we were aiming for a Christmas, November, December, and the news this week is Ricky Hatton's having an exhibition December the 2nd, which is almost divine intervention, if you like. It's probably almost to the very day that Junior releases his book, or it will be, if I have anything to do with it. And moral of this video is, the last couple of years we've seen Mike Tyson against Roy Jones, both of them shot to bits. We hear you talk of John Fury against, who's that guy? Mickey Theo. Ricky against Barrera a couple of years ago. Jake Paul against, God knows who. All these kind of YouTubers. And why not Ricky Hatton, Junior Witter? The money which is getting thrown into boxing by the Arabs and forgot his name. The guy, forgot his name, escapes me at the minute. Guy who's basically just chucking money after money at boxing. And why not? This book is The Avoided. I think the clue's in the name. There is a chapter called My Mate Ricky. Very respectful, extremely professional. There's no badness or anything like that. But the facts are, if you go back to 2002, I think it was, maybe 2001, 2002, Ricky gave his belt up rather than fight Junior. And then obviously they were world champions at the same time. 2006, 2007. Junior obviously lost it 2008 to Tim Bradley. And it should have happened. It really, really should have happened. So my question is, I'm sure, listen, Ricky will probably not entertain it. But it's my job And if I wasn't doing it, I wouldn't be doing my job. It's my job as an author, if you like, or maybe even a promoter for my book subject, to get it out there. And obviously, you know, I mean, we did kind of have a plan for November, December. Just so happens Ricky has a fight, and probably wouldn't be a bad day to release the book on that day. So I interviewed Ali McCoist a couple of years back for another book, and I told him about it. As I said, I took this book on 4 years ago, sat and interviewed him 3 years ago. And I asked Ali McCoist, I said, look, I've got this book, blah, 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 blah. Do you want to cover the story? And he said, absolutely. Yeah, so basically, I have kind of reached out to kind of your TalkSport, your Five Live, all these kind of things, if you like. And obviously, when the book comes out, there's controversial things in that. There's obviously, trained with Nassim Ahmed for various amount of years. It wasn't all plain sailing. Obviously, Brendan kicked Nas out. Had his last fight Halloween against Wayne McCulloch, 98, and that was it. Something off. Never come to my gym again, and Nas wasn't even welcome at his funeral. So there is a, as I said, there's a chapter in this. There's a lengthy chapter called My Mate Ricky. Junior had the Mayweather fight something like 3 times. Twice it was too early, and then obviously the third time. Sorry, twice, and then when he really wanted it, Mayweather vacated the title and went up and fought De La Hoya. I'm not by any means thinking Mayweather was, I think he went public and he said he'd never heard of Junior Witter. But I think most people know in the industry that Floyd he had enough people around him smart enough to, he knew who his number one mandatory was. He'd been his mandatory for 9 months, and then he paid X amount of money, basically to get a 3-month extension, and then vacated the title and moved up and fought De La Hoya in May 2007. And the rest is history. And obviously, he fought Ricky back end of the year. But there was a very, very poignant quote in my head. And it was from Gary Sykes' coach, Julian Davey, I can't remember. Lovely guy. And he said, boxing shafted Junior, yet he still won it. He still completed it at every level. British, your Commonwealth, your European, your Intercontinental. And then, of course, not only a world title, but a WBC, which is the Muhammad Ali belt. There's no, as much as Ricky Hatton is to be adored and an absolute living legend, it always kind of, when people go, oh, well, he never had anything for him. Ricky won the IBF and he won the WBA. Never held the WBC. So anyone who has a Scooby-Doo about boxing knows it's a WBC, IBF, stroke, WBA, and then the WBO is kind of last. Saying that, over the years, Vladimir Klitschko's held it. Manny Pacquiao's held it. So obviously has got a lot better from the days when Chris Eubank had it like 30 years ago. It has come on. So is even the IBO, which is, it's, Vladimir Klitschko's held that. In fact, when Ricky Hatton fought Manny Pacquiao, that was actually for the IBO and the ring belt, I think it was. So technically, Manny Pacquiao talks about his 8 divisions. The 10-stone fight that he had with Ricky actually wasn't for one of the 4 belts. So, someone would say, there's a lot of people over the years won that IBO. Billy Schweers won it. And they don't kind of class him as one of the 4 governing bodies. But yeah, listen, I watched a documentary about a year or 2 ago and someone said, I can't remember, was it Joshua or Fury? And they said, if Joshua against Fury doesn't happen, it'll be the biggest fight British boxing's never had since Witt and Hatton. And someone was saying to me the other day, oh, it wasn't the biggest. Calzaghe against Froch was the biggest, and like it wasn't because Joe retired November 2008. Froch won his first world title December 2008. So there were ships sailing in a night. They weren't world champions at the same time where Hatton and Witter were. The bookies actually had, when John Thaxton, when Junior stepped aside for Thaxton to fight Hatton, and it was arranged that he was going to fight the winner in 90 days. Obviously, Ricky gave up the title. The bookies had Junior as the favourite. Obviously, Brendan Ingle kind of put John Thaxton in as a yardstick, if you like. And yeah, listen, I'm just kind of thinking of things that, I've interviewed a lot of people over the last couple of years, your Johnny Nelsons and all these kind of people, and they've give a real expert insight into their opinions, why it didn't happen. But I know Junior would, I told him, I've had a little laugh, and I said, listen, you've got more chance of fighting Ray Hatton these days. Junior's in his 50s. I think Ricky's 46. In fact, he's coming up 47. So he'll be 47 when he boxes in December. Junior was 74, so I think Junior's 50 or 51. Well, he's 51 this year. So listen, of course, they passed it, but so was Tyson Fury. Sorry, so was Tyson Roy Jones. So was, Jake Paul and all this kind of stuff. And, boxing, I always say, I've got a book coming out about Mickey Duff. And Colin Hart, God rest him, he died this year. And he said to me, if Mickey Duff was here now, he'd be turning, sorry, if Mickey Duff was looking down, he'd be turning in his grave. Because you've got the likes of your kind of Tommy Fury's, who hasn't even fought for an English title, and he's boxing, literally making millions of pounds. And you kind of feel sorry for the people who, they go up to the area, English title, as I said, all these proper levels, the old school levels. It's almost cheating, but then again, social media, it's a strange world at the minute. I think, in my opinion, I think social media has really ruined the world. I preferred it 20 years ago when we just had phones and, when we were just kind of Bluetooth with each other and all that. And it's literally gone, it's gone crazy. But, I think a lot of people are saying it's absolutely ludicrous. It's absurd to suggest Hatton Witter and Ricky didn't want him 20 years ago. And I think personally, Eddie Hearn's first show was Audley Harrison against David Hay, which was dreadful. What was that? 2011, was it? And basically, if Eddie Hearn had come along probably 4 years earlier, we would have seen Hatton Witter. Money talks, and it still does. And if all these people are fighting over Saudi Arabia and all these people that they're not even boxers, then listen, I'd watch Hatton Witter in 20 years' time. I really would. It's a fight that should have happened. So, as I said, it's going to be my job to put the book out. And like anything in life, the book comes first. I was talking to a filmmaker. We started filming the documentary, but then we've kind of put it on hold. So the book will come out back end of the year. Then we're going to do a documentary, and listen, Junior will have his say, and rightly so, because it's his life, it was his career, and he was avoided. There's no question about it in my mind. He was absolutely avoided by several people, as you'll hear and you'll read in the book. So, Hatton Witter, could it happen? Does the public want it to happen? As I said, it's my job I'm going to make a couple of smoke screens. In fact, more than that, I'm going to make a racket, a noise. I'm going to be speaking to, various papers, various radios, various news, whatever, to promote this book, and the book, which is almost 90,000 words, Junior's life. And he's, as I said, he's got every right, but there is there is very, there's quite strong emotion in the book, from the Ingle gym to why the Hatton fight didn't come off, to taking fights which he shouldn't have done. When he fought Tim Bradley, his dad was dying, and looking back now, he should have just, the fight was actually cancelled something like 3 times. And when it happened, it was just literally the worst, and he just lost his world title, and he didn't want to be there. But yeah, Hatton Witter, um, tragic. It really, really is. If I sat and thought about it long enough, I could probably cry. As I said, Ricky is an absolute boxing royalty of the highest order, not only in Britain but in world boxing. He was entered in the Hall of Fame, which you don't get that. There's not a great deal of Brits who've had that. I think Frank Warren's had it, Colin Ha had it, Mickey Duff had it. Sure, Barry McGuigan had it. But there's not a lot of Brits that get that. And rightly so. Ricky Hatton was the boy next door, and I almost feel sorry for Junior Witter because he was in his weight class, and it's, albeit how great he was loved. So you couldn't come close to Ricky Hatton for being this nice guy. So what he had to do, what Clubber Lang did in Rocky 3, or what Tommy Morrison did in Rocky 5, to get the fight, he had to humiliate him and try and embarrass him and get on his nerves. And in Ricky's opinion, he probably did go a bit too far. I don't know. Listen, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just a pugilist fan, big fan of the noble art, and I prefer to watch two British fighters. And it is boxing. It's criminal. It's crimes against boxing to think that fight never happened, but could it still happen? I don't know. But it just goes to show Ricky's out there, and he's obviously doing his mental health good as well, and good on him. He's losing the weight, and he's climbed Everest, if you like, and he'll always be adored. And I think there would be people who'd want to watch it, and of course Junior would be the villain again, because as Alfred Hitchcock said, to make a movie great, it's all about how great the villain is, and villains. I forgot off the top of my head. It was something like, basically, a film is only as good as how good the villain was. And Junior Witter played a very good villain. Bad times don't last, bad guys do. I think the famous Razor Ramon said. Scott Hall, and Junior was lasted almost 20 years. So you don't last that long unless you've got something about you and skin as thick as a rhino. But yeah, listen. Witter Hatton, could it happen? Let us know your comments below. And as I said, when the book comes out, there'll be a lot of noise. You might just see it happen on the day released of Ricky's fight. Obviously, your talk sport, all this kind of stuff. We will see. But as I said, it's my job to. There's no point writing the best book in the world or writing the best song in the world if you don't tell anyone. Oscar Wilde said there's only one thing worth being talked about, and that's not being talked about. So there's one thing I'm quite good at is PR. It's what I'm built for. It kind of makes me happy, and I do like to talk and interact and speak to interesting people. But Hatton Witter, let us know your thoughts, and by any I'll just say again, Junior has been incredibly, sincerely respectful. There's no cheap shots, or there's no below the belt things he could have said. It's highly respectful, and rightly so. But at the end of the day, he did give up his title, and he did say he wasn't going to fight him ever. So You know, Junior's take on it is, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best, not only in the world. I wanted to prove I was the best, and he, you know, in my opinion, that he still probably struggles to sleep. To you know, I dare say that kind of niggles at him a little bit these days. But anyway, let us know your thoughts. Let us know your comments, and yeah, will we ever see it? Hatton Witter.